this is Sasa and welcome to my channel. I make sewing, cooking, cosplay, photography, and other DIY videos. Today is a tutorial on how to make this apron dress. I googled a bunch of apron dress style, Japanese inspired, cottagecore, a whole bunch of things, and then I decided on an idea of the pattern. And I went and took another commercial pattern that I have and modified it. So I took the front piece and I extended the side all the way out so it would wrap around my body at the back. So after sketching out and cutting out the pattern, I find a good way to check it is put the paper against your body and you check in front of the mirror to see the sizing and the proportions, if it's too long or too short, and make adjustments then. The fabric I'm using is fairly thick. It's some kind of blend of wool or polyester. I'm not exactly sure. I thrifted this fabric, So to make the straps, you fold them with the right sides together and you stitch all the way across the top. I also stitch across one of the bottom edges. If you prefer, you can open it up and flatten it so that the seam will be in the center back. I decided to have my seam on the side instead of the back. So you want to iron the straps next, and I find with ironing and heat, it kind of sets the stitches and it smooths it out. So it's a very important step. I know sometimes we can be lazy and skip it, but it makes a big difference in your final garment. It also makes it easier to sew. So please try not to skip the ironing steps. You will need to trim the corners, so you just cut off a bit of extra fabric around the corners so that when you flip it right side out, there will be less bulk and it will be more square. To make the pockets, I'll use my serger to finish off the raw edges of 3 sides. I'll leave the top open. So for the top of the pockets, I'll fold the fabric over twice and hem that. If you don't have a serger, you can do this for all 4 sides of the pocket. And for the facing piece, which is the lining piece, I'm also serging off the sides as well as the bottom edge. If you don't have a serger, you can fold it under twice, but I find with this fabric, it will be too thick. So if your fabric is thinner, it's not an issue, but for me, it would be too thick, so I'm just finishing it like this. If your fabric is more on the thinner side, you may need to fully line the entire dress. I just did the upper portion. And for the outer dress piece, I serge off on the both sides because that area, when we hem it, there will be some raw edges. So we want to clean that up first. So here I'm pinning the straps to the right side of the dress. And you want to make sure it's in the center. When fabric looks very similar and almost a similar color on both sides, it can be a little bit annoying to keep checking which is the right and the wrong side. So normally I'll mark it with a pin or a safety pin so I don't have to keep checking. So I'll sew the straps to the dress. Next we'll take our facing piece, and with the right sides together, we're going to pin them in place. So we're going to sew the 2 pieces together with a seam allowance of 1.5 centimeters. And when you get to the strap part, be careful not to catch it on the sides. So you're going to need to trim and clip the corners, because if not, it'll be too bulky, and when you flip it to the right side out, it will just bunch up and it won't be very smooth. And we're going to clip all of the curves. Then I'm going to iron both sides. And whenever possible, if the curve is not too intense, I'm going to use the iron and push over flat the seam. Iron the seam over towards the lining or the facing. So I turn it to the right side out, and with the help of a chopstick, I help push out the seams and the corners. So next I'm going to do understitching. Understitching is when you sew the lining to all layers of the seam allowance. And what this does, it holds the lining to the wrong side and it flattens the seam and it creates a more professional look. So you will not be able to start all the way in the corner and to go all the way to the edge because eventually you'll get stuck. So just go as far as you can. So next we're going to do the hem of the side and the bottom. So this is why it was important to serge off the top bits before. So I fold once and I fold twice and then all the raw edges will be hidden. So I iron all the parts that we understitch, as well as the hem parts, the side and the bottom. I iron both the top and the back. So to attach the straps, you're going to need to try it on and pin them so that you know how long or short they need to be for you. And make sure they're crisscross and they're not twisted. So I just sew these directly on top. There's another option if you want to add buttons and do buttonholes so you can have it for different sizes. So for the pocket placement, I first try it on and I place the pocket where my hand reaches. So it's not, if it's too low, that means you have to like bend over to reach the pocket. So you want to have it at a good height. To make sure that the pockets are lined up and evenly spaced, I folded the apron in half and then I could feel the other pocket from the other side and I placed the other one on top so it'd be in the same place. I sew 2 rows of straight stitching to attach the pockets. If your fabric is more thin, you may need to use interfacing or an extra piece of cotton backing for when you sew the pockets on. I iron both sides so they can smooth out any wrinkles. So I found that the green one I made, the strap spacing was a little bit far apart. So I made another one in navy blue and I'll show you how I made the pattern adjustments. So here's a mini just to demo. I cut the top part off, folded it in half, and then folded the center bit down a little bit so to bring them together. I taped that and then I reattached it to the main piece. And since now the curves mismatch, I just smoothed that out and cut that out. In order to figure out how much to bring the straps closer together, I tried on the green one and I pinned it closer. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more free tutorials like this, please comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye bye.